You are watching the video version of the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. We are so glad that you are here. If you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can find the Marketing Should Be Fun show on any of your favorite podcast platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. But most of all, we're so glad you're here, and I hope that you enjoy today's conversation. Well, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Should Be Fun. My name's Austin Savage, and I'm here with my good friend, Kelsie Zarko, the founder of Curate Social. I am the founder of Savage Content Collective, which I did not add like I normally do in the introduction, and I messed it up. Kelsie, I never messed this up. What's going on?
You need no introduction. We all know.
Oh, we all know. I think I've only messed it up twice today, and then that one time you said that I forgot to say good friend before.
Oh, yeah. I was offended. I was like, oh, I'm not your good friend anymore? Fine. See how it is.
Fine. We have a couple times here on the podcast, we have done what we call like growth stories. And typically we've interviewed clients or, people that we've worked with, people that we've worked alongside in some capacity or have partnered with in marketing, just all these different things. But we've done these growth stories and they've been really, really fun. And Kelsie, I'm excited for today's episode because we're switching it up. We're throwing out our this or that. We're throwing out our typical maybe formats of marketing advice. And we are doing a growth story about Curate Social and your journey as an entrepreneur.
Man, what a day. What a day. I don't know what to do with myself. It's just, how will I operate without having to answer this or that, especially when last episode was so intense and you had very strong feelings. But no, I'm really excited and honored that you asked to interview me.
It's I'm excited to hear more about your journey. Obviously, we talk a lot outside of the podcast, but I think that I'll learn parts of hopefully like your internal process of launching Curate and just what your experience has been since starting it. So I think that we've talked about Curate quite a bit, but before we dive into the journey and the story, give kind of like the 60-second overview of like what's the type of work that you're doing now kind of like each and every day in your business.
Yeah. My overall kind of purpose and passion for getting out of bed every day, I've realized, is to just champion and influence people to own their stories and own their gifts. And I just happen to be good at doing it through Instagram. So I kind of put all that together. And that's why Curate exists. I wanted to come alongside business owners, especially solopreneurs, kind of that small, maybe a micro influencer type vibe, and just help them fan their gifts and their business and their offerings into flame. Practically what that looks like on a daily basis is I'm managing multiple brands' Instagram accounts, coming up with all the ideas, helping them with film direction and creative direction, putting those together, writing captions, all of that. I do a little bit of email as well, since, we've preached it on this podcast forever that we want that content strategy to be integrated and be working together. And then I do a little bit of coaching as well, and just launched a membership where people can come to me for social prompts, ideas, if they're kind of in a place where they're not ready for me to fully manage it, but they want some support and don't want all the research and ideas to be on their shoulders. So that's what I do in a nutshell in 60 seconds or a little more.
If only you were busy. Man, I'm sorry that you just like have nothing on your plate anymore.
It's such a boring thing to just sit down every day and wonder, what should I do today?
You're like, let me tell you about the 4 things that we do that just occupies every minute of
pretty much.
Not every minute of the day, but you can feel like it sometimes.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I remember when I first launched Savage Content, I think the biggest like hurdle to get over, and really like the moment that it just kind of went from this like sort of like uphill kind of like journey to even convince myself to start a business. I think like that pinnacle was just the moment where I was like, okay, I think I realized that I want to do this. Like, this is actually something I want to do. This isn't just an idea. This is like a dream of mine. And I think that's when it like for me just clicked, and I was like, get excited, you build the website, you start making the progress, you start putting together the packages, all of those things. And I imagine it was, fairly similar for you. I know that Curate was, something that you had thought of, as an idea for quite some time. I remember when you first joined the Savage Content team, you had shared that you were kind of curious about starting your own agency someday. in some capacity. You know, you didn't know what that looked like. So I am curious, like, tell me about that journey for you of like getting to that place of like accepting the vision and like recognizing that it was actually something that you wanted to do.
Yeah. This will make you cry probably. Oh, we should make a little tally. Can our editors make a little thing up there? It's like, how many times does Austin cry? Ding. Okay. Ding. No, just kidding.
I'm not ready to cry today. I didn't come into this prepared for that.
Oh no. Yesterday I got to go with Matt to work for a little bit. My husband, he works at our church, and they do a gathering where once a month all the staff gets together and they kind of like welcome in new people, wish people, you know, goodbye if they're leaving, have some time together. Anyway, one of the guys was leaving and he was like, I just walked in here with a limp and now I'm walking out like sprinting. And I think in some ways that kind of describes my journey. I think we've talked about this before. I was a second grade teacher. Like, this was not on my radar. Started selling Young Living oils, which is always the weird part of the story where I'm like, hold on, it makes sense. And that's when I like fell in love with marketing and saw how you could really sell things and build a community in a way that wasn't creepy or weird or, you know, kind of cringy. And so when I started working with you, that was me kind of coming out of that season of, I love the marketing side of this, but I don't want to be in direct sales anymore. Like, I really want to help other people build their businesses. But I came in with a lot of leadership PTSD, just a different world in direct sales. It was no one person's fault. It's just a different animal. Yeah. And so I just came in and was like, I don't want to be in charge of anything. I don't want to be the first guy out. Like, I just want to follow somebody, but kind of still be in charge. And you were like, okay, sure.
You're like, actually, I have the exact role for you.
Yeah, you're like, wonderful, welcome. And those were such good years. Like, I have zero regrets about doing that. I don't feel in any way that it was like, oh, I didn't do my own idea, I did yours. Like, none of that. That was such a healing season for me. And I learned so much. I would not have been able to start Curate without those years. So I think the long answer to your question is that process was spending enough years kind of being like, okay, wait, like, I can do this. Like, I remember I love this and I loved what we were doing. I just had a little bit different vision for the season of life we were in, the type of specific clients I wanted to support. I think healing enough to be like, I can be the guy out in front. I can call the shots and do this. And then I remember sitting at my kitchen table, I don't even remember when it was, spring, summer. And we had spent a year in a leadership class at our church. I've talked about that and how just impactful that was for me, of honing in on what am I really gifted at? What do I have a passion for? And I remember sitting in the idea just like coming out of my fingertips, like just literally felt like God was like, here's your idea. And I had I had the name, I had the packages, I had the services, I had the ideal client. And so I think that was when I was like, oh shoot, I think I have to do this now. And then being like, okay, what's the process going to be of talking to you about it, of, you know, transitioning into what that season looks like. And then I remember standing in my neighborhood pool with one of my best friends and being like, hey, I'm going to say this out loud to someone that's not my husband and not just in my brain. And now it might become real. And so, very similar to what you said of like, oh, I think I want to do this. Now what do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. How did your husband react when you told him?
He was like, I have been telling you this forever. Like, he knew that I was like, I had been saying for years, even, I mean, he's the one who told me to take the job with you. Like, he's the one who saw your Facebook post and was like, that's hey, true. You know, all that stuff you talk about every night about what you want to do, this is the job. And I was like, oh, I didn't think I was qualified. And he was like, oh my gosh. So I guess that's just a good example of, he has always been like my biggest cheerleader of like, go do it. We'll figure it out. And I think he'd listened to me verbally process enough that he was like, yes, what you're saying makes sense. I think this is the right timing. Let's, walk it out, take one step at a time.
It's so crazy how that process happens though. Like you're saying, you're sitting at the kitchen table and it's like, all of a sudden it just gets like downloaded. And I think that, I don't know, it's just such a unique experience with ideas in general, but like especially something this big, because it was the same for me. Like I was literally driving around. I think I had just dropped my kids off at school, and I remember like where I was driving around Peoria, and remember the road that I was going down. The river was on the right, like I remember where we were at, the houses that were on the left, and it was like just instant, like, oh, like it makes sense now. And it like all just started to cascade. And it was like just this like barrier, this gate that like just gets lifted. And then it's like the floodgates of ideas. It's like you give yourself that permission to to dream. I don't know. I think that that's like really, really cool that that's a experience maybe that we share, but also that all entrepreneurs share.
It's almost like you spend, and maybe it's encouraging to people even who are listening, who kind of have like you just have the pieces, but they haven't fit together yet. Like just keep letting the pieces kind of roll around. I do feel like you get to the point where, I mean, you've experienced it. I have so many people. One day it just clicks. And I think it clicks when it's supposed to, and you can't rush it. You sure don't want to wait around on it once it has clicked. And so it is just a really, an interesting process for sure. You really can't force it or make it up.
Yeah. Well, you introed my next question perfectly. And I remember you very early on to when you started working with me. I remember you sharing kind of like similar sentiments to that idea of like, I'm coming in with a limp and I'm, leaving just kind of healed in some ways. And I remember you just like saying a lot of that. Like, you're like, I feel like I think you use like the phrase of like lacking confidence in some ways. Like I also am just like tired. Like I don't want to be like in this role. And I don't remember the exact language that you used, around some of those things. But I remember, when you first told me that you wanted to start Curate, that it was kind of like a 180 on some of the language that you had used when you first, started working with me. And so take us into that process of like, what did it look like for you to rebuild your confidence as an entrepreneur? Because I'm thinking of people who are listening who might have like tried to launch something and it failed, or who just like you might have done something on their own a while ago, worked for other people, and then kind of like have gotten to a place that they're like, I think that I'm ready again. But there's such a personal process, to all of those things. And there's also just such a personal tie to the success of something that we create and kind of what we think about ourselves and what we're capable of. So walk us into that process. Like, what do you think were those areas that really kind of like reconnected themselves in your heart or in your soul, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we want it to be like, tell me A, B, and C, and I'll go run and do it. And I think it is just that annoyingly true answer of, it's just a lot of deep work over time that's real messy and really hard and sometimes really good, and you need people around you. And so a little more practically, I would say it was just a season too that overlapped with kind of when I started working for you. We had just moved to, pretty recently before that, a whole new state, whole new city, got plugged into a new community. This culture of our community here, and even, our local church, I know everyone listening has different beliefs, but this was just a core of mine that God is a big part of my life. And so the community of believers is just part of who we spend our time with. And I think the culture that we are in just cares so much about, you were made on purpose and you were made for right now, and like take some time to really understand that. And it's not something that is like, oh, just look at me, but it's like, no, you were given this one life. Do you want to waste it? No. So spending a lot of time looking back at my story, figuring out how I was wired, looking at like messages I had believed. Like one time I literally mapped my whole story out on this wall. It was so crazy. Just looking at different turning points and messages I had believed that were not true, and being able to say, oh, that's why I do that. And now I can go back to that message and be like, that's not true. I can practice like reminding myself, I don't have to live out of that lie. I can live out of the truth. A lot of counseling. Let's just normalize it. Like that's so helpful to just process through things that were hard, and that you just kind of need to go back and figure out like, what about that is still impacting me today, and how can I let that go? And then I think it was just time of like, I needed some time to rest. I needed some time to not be the one making the decisions all the time, so that I could kind of get myself back to a place of trusting myself, and maybe practicing trusting myself in a place where the stakes weren't so high. Like as much as it's not fun for you, you had my back. So like if something hit the van, I could come to you and be like, hey, can we figure this out together? You were always very good at being like, I got you. Like if we're in this hard meeting, like I'll jump in and say something. And so I know there are seasons where that can feel like micromanagey to maybe to some people, but it did not to me. It was the perfect spot for me to just be like, let me flex my muscles a little bit, but like not have to just carry the whole ship all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very unique experience for you, in some ways, of like being able to exercise those same, entrepreneurship muscles and build in the same way without having all of the maybe weight and pressure that it can feel like in any business. Like, you were saying the Young Living stuff, which is like different, but it is still like, it's on you to build this, make the connections, keep going. And I think, getting back to that place of like, okay, like you've inched yourself back to that place of being ready, I think was very, very helpful.
Yeah. I think practically too, I've experienced this with myself and with Matt. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, it's also just like, hey, right now in this season, do you want all of the income needs to be on you, or do you want like a steady paycheck? And those are just some very practical, helpful questions of just asking yourself like the logistics and modality of how your income is coming in or what your schedule looks like. There's just realities that in different positions, those things take on different roles and the way they look. And you get to, in some ways, it's a great privilege. I don't want to miss that, to be able to pick. Like some people, you have to go to work and you have to do what you got to do and you have to make an income. But when we have the freedom to kind of pick, I have found those things to be helpful of what's going to just serve me best, what's going to serve my family best right now, what's going to be most life-giving, the least stressful, those practical things.
Yeah. I would just like to point out, crying counter, 0. So
okay. Well, I haven't dug deep enough yet then. Okay. I'm gonna keep working on it.
I did think it was very funny. Like as you said, Austin, you'll probably cry throughout this. And then I lift up my like very flowery mug of just like cheer. And I'm like,
everything is fine. I'm so strong.
Okay, I want to dive into a little bit more of like the practical side of launching Curate. And you're very fresh in. I mean, what has it been, like 8-9 months maybe since you fully launched it?
October. I should know that. September, October, November, December, January. Yeah, 9 months.
Okay.
We have had a baby.
You have had a baby. You are making progress. You've almost hit that year mark, which is obviously huge, and it's looking like you'll make it. So
I think
that much is good.
I think so.
That's always like the worst thing too. Like I think this will be like year 5 for Savage Content, like at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And it is such a funny thing. You're like, it's looking like we'll make it. I really hope that we do.
Sometimes it's touch and go. You never really know.
But I think one of the questions that I'm asked most often by people who are curious about starting a business or people who have started a business is like, how did you get off the ground? And service-based businesses in general are very unique. And especially like the agency model is very unique because it requires less clients overall than maybe a typical business, especially a product-based business, but requires like a much larger investment, of time and even commitment from the clients that we're working with. And I know we preach here on the podcast all the time is that idea of human connection. And, especially for something like this, for launching something new, like who I'm sure was a big piece of that. But walk us through that process of launching Curate and how you had the connections or made the connections to really like get off the ground in the first few months.
Yeah. One of the things I did that I don't know that you can always do, but it worked for me. Great advice, right? Might not work for you. I had the opportunity, I had a friend kind of reach out, ask me to lunch, pick my brain, and was like, I'm looking for some help with social. And I was like, at this time I was still working for you. And I was like, this is not going to be a client we would specifically bring on just for a myriad of reasons. And just the different visions we both have for our companies. And I was like, let me just try it on the side. Let me just see if I even like this. And so that was really helpful to me of like, let me just like kick the tires a little before I put all my chips in. And because maybe I wouldn't like it. But it just ended up being like, I tried out kind of the core service I wanted to offer, the core pricing I wanted. And it just like, it worked so well and I loved it. And so that was a great little practical kick the tires moment. As far as once I decided I wanted to start it, once I talked to you, once we were like, okay, this is going to happen, I just pulled up all the courage I could muster and asked people if I could sit down and talk with them and just be like, hey, I really trust you. You're a business owner in our community. I really admire you, respect you. Here's kind of where I'm at, like with what I'm thinking. Could you just like poke some holes in this or affirm the things you do hear me saying? And so that was super helpful. And while I didn't mean for it to, it also led to some clients. And so there is something just about those, what you said, human connection, getting with people that you want to work with and that are exciting to you. But I feel like their advice was really what it was wonderful that they wanted to be a client, but I didn't expect that. Yeah. And then once I was ready to talk about it, there were a lot of late nights. I mean, I was still working my full-time job with you and then working at night on just all the like writing my website copy and all the not glamorous, real gritty things. And then I think what kind of took off from there then was once I was ready, I had the pieces in place. I did a post on Instagram, and that is where just the type of person you have been and the connections you have made and just all the different places. I mean, I think that's where you get to see so much, where I had so much fun seeing the sovereignty of the Lord of like, remember when I had you here and then you were here and then you were here? All those people now want to be here. And that was just his kindness to me. But something where you got to put yourself out there and be like, the door is open. Do you want to come in? And then the people, like you were saying, that kind of are in your warmer circle, the people you've had connection with are definitely typically your first clients. I don't know that any of my first clients were like total strangers. Even one that was a connection from my sister-in-law. So it's human connection.
Yeah. It's such a great example, like in your story. And again, I felt the same thing when I launched Savage Content, of just that importance of trust, like over, over a long period of time is, and I think you were probably surprised by this in some ways, but I know when I launched Savage Content and like the amount of people who came through and were like, I want to work with you. I want to work with you. I want to work with you. I was like, did not expect that. Did not expect that. Well, sort of expected that one, but did not, and it's like such a unique experience to be able to see that. But, it's such a great example of like who you are matters. And this is, I mean, part of the reason we talk about just creating content for a long time is, even if you're not launching something new and you're just kind of iterating like within your current business or your current organization, I mean, the trust that you've built to have, the people in your life who maybe they can't work with you, but they're going to tell their friends who can, like that just makes such a difference with momentum of people who are just engaged and not engaged. And so just being that, that person who does give value, does just kind of like position themselves in a good way throughout your life, which you did. That's just such a great example of that paying off.
Yeah. Even if you're listening and you're not posting about your business right now, I mean, just since this is we talk about marketing and content, there were seasons of my life where I just like wrote whatever was on my heart on my Instagram. And it's like a picture of my kid or my kitchen counter. But even that is just another drip of like, oh, I like her writing. She knows how to write. Like it doesn't always have to be so on the nose for you to build that trust and human connection and just get to enjoy being who you are. Most often, I feel like that is what gives you those human connection pieces. It's not always the shiniest piece of content, although we love those too. It's truly living out who you are and people trusting you and connecting with you because of your authenticity.
Yeah, that's so good. What have you been the most surprised by since you launched?
I think the amount of people that are like, hey, I'm interested. And I'm like, whoa. Okay, I thought this was going to be, there will be seasons. And I feel like that was the beauty of getting to work with you and just see like long life cycles of business.
We've never had hard seasons. We've never.
We're
always up and to the right, Kelsie.
I just want to normalize it. And I think it helped normalize it for me of like, great, this has been surprising to see how quickly my books filled. I really expected it to be maybe a little bit harder, but to also go, okay, great. And don't do anything crazy, like save and be smart and like all the things, just knowing it would be easy for me to be excited and just, make some rash decisions, but to settle in for like, hey, I want to build this for a long time. I don't want to make another change anytime soon. And so I think, surprised at the growth and then also just trying to handle it wisely.
Yeah. That's really cool. Similar question, but what has, and maybe this is the same answer that you just gave, but what has been the hardest part so far for you in the first year? What are those things that you're like, oh, this has been tough? And what are those things that have just been like really rewarding, like that you would kind of put in that like best part category?
Yeah. Hardest part, I think, has been you're just the only one. Like it's all on me. And I feel like I have the shoulders to carry that and I'm good with it. But there are times where like we went on vacation and I was like, I still have to work. There's no one else to do this. And I chose that. And so I'm okay with it, but it is hard. Sometimes even more hard from like other people's perspectives of like, I could feel people's disappointment of like, you're here on vacation. Why are you working? And I'm like, because I earn an income for my family and I have clients counting on me and I have to do my job. Like that's just the long and short of it. So that's been hard. But it's also given some good perspective to like, what are some other options that could exist down the road? So this isn't always true, but it's fine for now. I think the most rewarding parts have just been like when it works, like when you just remember like, oh, I am kind of good at this. And like the things we talk about and the basics and the principles that we talk about all the time and that we used when I worked with you and when I work for myself. And that client just gets to see that success. My favorite thing is to just like screenshot the text or the voice messages I get from people that are like, oh my gosh, somebody just walked in my door and told me they came here because of my social media. Like, it's working. And I'm like, I knew it would work, but it's so fun when you see that it works.
Yes.
So that is really rewarding. And then I think the other part is just feeling like that deep contentment of like, this was the right choice. It was a hard choice. Yeah. There would have been good things about staying. There would have been, there are good things about going, but just to know like right now in this season, this is where I'm supposed to be. And just even when the walls are burning down and my hair is on fire, like just to know like, this is right. This is where I'm supposed to be, even when it's hard, even when it's good. And on the days where I have felt like, was this crazy? Like, is this really going to work? And then I feel like on those days, the Lord just sends a text from a client or like an email or just a moment where I'm like, man, I loved writing that. That was so like fulfilling to just kind of remind me like, yeah, this is right.
Yeah. I love that. What would be one piece of advice or encouragement that you want to give people who are in that either like discovery phase of like, I kind of am thinking about this, or to those people who are in that first year of launching something new? And just no matter what it is, you gave the great example of vacation. I mean, it's just like, you're building it, it's like every minute counts and, like every interaction counts. And, you're like in our business, right? Like we can, set up some boundaries for, client relationships and stuff like that, but we're still having to, build our business, deliver on, what we are committed to, what we're contracted for. And, it's just such a unique thing in that early season. But what would be a piece of encouragement or specific advice you want to give people who are in that same season?
It doesn't sound super mind-blowing or new, but I think the thing that's helped me the most is just get people around you. Like I had lunch with don't think that you're just so new and so small that you can't invest in yourself. I had lunch with a business coach. It was like one of the most helpful conversations, just having like mentors or even just you and I being able to sit and chat about like, hey, this, people that get it, and you can kind of just brainstorm and vent and celebrate all the things. So have a supportive community around you in whatever way that looks like for you. I think it's when you get alone and in your head and by yourself at 11 p.m. and you think you've made the biggest mistake of your life. Like, no, get back around your people, get some wind in your sails, and don't be afraid to borrow people's wisdom, their lessons they've learned, their experience. Just build it right from the very beginning. I think you save yourself a lot of just reiterating and headaches and all of that if you can borrow people's wisdom who've gone before you. Yeah,
truly. Even this year, and I'm in year 4/5 of business, but like I started meeting once a month with another agency owner who's out in West Virginia. And it's like a little thing, it's not like it is game changing in my business, and like things like that. But it has like from a communal perspective and just from like, just having those conversations that one, help me feel seen. And like that, I'm like, okay, you actually have encountered this before, or we're both encountering this at the same time in different ways. Or that idea of like just getting ideas from somebody else too, that it's like, oh, that was a really cool way that you innovated in, in the work that you do. Like, I wonder how I could do something, similar. And it just kind of keeps that, like, it just keeps raising, I think, your internal ceiling of like what you kind of like tell yourself that you're capable of, or the messages that you are telling yourself, I think is they are just kind of like grown, I think, through community in so many cases.
Definitely. Yeah. You need to get out of your own head and just have conversations with real people. It's true about a lot of things in life.
It is true about a lot of things. Kelsie, I'm very, very proud of you. Curate, it has been very cool to see how it has grown. And, in some ways you have been modest in how you are talking about it, but it's growing very quickly. And that is very cool to see. I'm excited to see the rest of the journey. I think that you had a lot of great insights to share, and it's an honor to kind of be watching it from the sidelines. It's fun.
Thank you. I think it's been really encouraging and like another little healing piece to me too, to see like, we're both doing great. There is so much room out there for lots of ideas. I mean, I think it was a fear of mine of like, I'm leaving. Like, what if I don't like, what if we're like fighting over clients, or like, what if one of us, you know, if it doesn't work well for one of us, and just to see like, that is scarcity mindset is real on purpose because it's scarcity. And just to have that abundance mindset of there's plenty of room for us to both walk in our gifts, and just to see the different like ways, like we both love a lot of the same things, but they kind of come out in different ways. So I just honor you for just telling me like, go run, go fly, you got this, and not having any type of, you know, bitterness or resentment. I think that was just such a really powerful example to me of leadership. And so thanks for just, giving me the wings to take off.
Heck yeah. Well, before I cry, we're going to end today's episode.
And so, hey, thanks for listening. Bye.
And so, thanks for listening to this episode of Marketing Should Be Fun. But seriously, I appreciate those words. And to our listeners, I do hope that there is, something that you're able to pull from Kelsie's journey and able to connect to your own journey, no matter where you're at in growing your organization or your business or idea. No matter what it is, it all has a place in this world that we live in. So as always, thank you for listening to Marketing Should Be Fun. And we will see you right back here on the next episode.